Let me also say this. It's a lot of scammers out there. A lot of scammers out there. My father and his partner, they were scammed. There are a lot of people out there that will say that they can get you a visa and they take you for a ride. You may never get the visa. At the minimum, they charge you exorbitant prices. There's no need to half step. Welcome to BLAXIT to Africa. I'm your host, Tadre Delora Moignet, a California native living her best life in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride. I hope that you are informed, inspired, and entertained to BLAXIT to Africa. This episode is all about visas, acquiring a visa in Kenya. Oh my Jesus, so many people have been in my DMs, have been in the comments, just asking me to do an episode on how to get a visa, how to stay in Kenya legally. First, I want to talk about what is a visa and why is it called a visa. It's a bit confusing because with your credit card, you have a Visa, you got Amex, you got MasterCard, Discover, whatever else. So why is it called a visa? Some say that it stands for Verified International Stay Approval or Virtual Important Stamp Authorization. The term visa is a simple noun rather than an acronym. A visa is an authorization sticker, a stamp, or record that is placed in your passport to verify that you have formal permission to enter, remain, and or leave a certain country. I'm going to do a lot of reading in this episode because it's a lot of information, okay? I also found through just cursory research that visa, from the Latin charta visa, meaning paper that has been seen, is a conditional authorization granted by a polity to a foreigner that allows them to enter, remain within, or leave its territory. That's a lot to say. It's a stamp, it's a document, it's a sticker that goes into your passport for a specified amount of time that allows you to exist outside of your passport country legally. Some countries do a sticker, some do a stamp, some do both. It really just depends on the country. In Kenya, they do a sticker and a stamp. So these visas, who gets a visa? Who doesn't get a visa? Do you need to have a visa? How long you can stay in a particular country? It really is dependent upon the politics of the day, the foreign policies of the day. So for instance, before the Trump administration, before even the Bush administration in the United States, Americans could go and leave, could travel, could enter various countries without a visa. Then these administrations pissed off foreign governments, and it was like, all right, well, you're going to put restrictions on our people, we're going to put restrictions on you. Okay? Oh, you really pissed us off. So we're going to make it difficult for you to come into the country. But because we have the almighty dollar, we typically are not restricted from entering countries. We typically are not denied visas. We are blessed people in the global north in that you can pretty much guarantee that when you apply for a visa, you're going to get it. So many of our friends, billions of our friends throughout the world, really do not have that privilege. You apply for a visa, it's an extremely long process. and people report being embarrassed at various embassies around the world. Um, and there's really nothing that we can do about it. But when you're coming from the global north, it's really easy to apply for a visa online. You do not have to go to anybody's embassy these days to get a visa. Also, back in the day, if you lived in a part of the country where there weren't embassies, you could just, you'd have to mail something in. Now, just about everything is online. So with Kenya, there's an e-visa, electronic visa, and I will get into that. What you need to know about Kenya is that you cannot get a visa on arrival. That changed during COVID. You, look, do not be like me. Do not be like me. My homegirl, she told me, she was like, by the way, you need to apply for your visa before you get to Kenya. And I was like, oh, it's Africa. Everything's negotiable. I was embarrassed. I was humbled. I was disheartened. Okay. I got to the airport. I was looking cute. I was confident. I was all of that. I had my little hat on, my colors, I was matching, all that. I got up there and they was like, ma'am, you cannot travel. I was traveling from Uganda to Kenya and they stopped me, okay, at the check-in counter at the airport in Entebbe, Uganda. Ma'am, you cannot get on this flight. So ultimately, the brother tried to work with me. He took me over to immigration. I was having issues with the Wi-Fi. Immigration said no, I couldn't get on with the Wi-Fi. There was something happening with the Kenyan e-visa website. It was a mess. I had to buy a new ticket. I had to pay for transport from Entebbe back to Kampala. I had to go to the Kenyan embassy because something was going on with the website. I wasn't able to get the visa. It was just drama. You need to register, apply for that visa, have it in hand, preferably printed out before you are able to travel. Just letting you know. Now, where you go to get a visa to enter Kenya, you go to evisa.go.ke. I'm going to repeat that and put that below. evisa.go.ke. There's a lot to be said about this website. Sometimes it don't be working. I know people who have gotten like 2-year visas because they had a business here. They were able to pay, I want to say 2,000 USD. There's so many different ways to acquire a visa, to come into Kenya legally, and to also remain in Kenya legally. Moving on, we're going to cover retirement visas, spousal visas, student visas, work visas, as well as single, multi, and East African visas. So I'm going to be reading again because it's a lot of information. All right, so let's start with the single entry visa. This is something that is issued for a single entry to persons whose nationalities require a visa to enter Kenya, either for business, tourism, medical, or other reasons, okay? That means you can come into Kenya, but you cannot leave without paying for a new visa, okay? So the requirements are easy. They need you to show a return ticket and also a valid travel document not less than 6 months, okay? So that means that your passport cannot expire within 6 months of your stay in Kenya, okay? Now, the return ticket is a bit tricky, I think, specifically for people who are nomads, people who have multiple destinations, right? So you may not have a return ticket from Kenya. You know, you may be someone who just has a one way. If when that's the case, then you need to contract somebody to negotiate this on your behalf. All right, so these single entry visas are typically valid for 3 months from within the date of issue. So if they issue it to you in March, June, July, August, that means by August you got to be out of there. You also need to be very aware, you need to be conscious of what's happening, because sometimes they might only issue you a 30-day visa or a 60-day visa. You would ultimately like to have a 90-day visa, okay? And let's say you're getting it in person. Let's say you're getting it at an embassy in person, or you're getting it at a land border, right? You're traveling by bus, you're traveling by land, and you see that stamp. Pay attention, because it might just be for 30 or 60 days. You want to be able to go back to the agent, or not even leave the line and just look at this. Sir, I see this is only for 60 days. May I please have one for 90? Be able to make that request. Now, this single entry visa is $51. Not bad, not bad. But if you have plans to travel around East Africa, did somebody tell me that the Congo is now part of the East African Union? So, you know, you have to double check that. Like I said, these things are always changing depending on politics, policies, procedures. So you'll have to double check that. But for what I know right now, East Africa consists of Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya. These 4 nations, okay? And when you go to evisa.go.ke, you can see all the other information about these single entry visas, okay? Then there's a transit visa. I'm not going to go into that, because a transit visa is like, okay, you're only staying a day, maybe you missed your flight, something's happening where you're not going to vacation here, you're not going to stay here for more than 2 days. You just need a visa, you're just passing through. I'm not going to go over that, because I think the people who are watching this, who want this information, they're not going to need a transit visa, okay? Then they have this courtesy visa. This is for diplomats, okay? Now, when you're applying for a courtesy visa and you're a diplomat, the government agency that you work for, they're applying for that for you. So there's no need for me to go into that. All right, let me talk about the East African Tourist Visa. This is a joint tourist visa assigned to persons traveling to and within Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. Okay, so it looks like Tanzania is not on here. All right. Present the e-visa printout to immigration control at the point of entry. The East African visa sticker will be issued at the point of entry in Kenya. So this is point of entry, can be air, it can be land, okay? Again, we've got 2 requirements: a return ticket and a valid travel document not less than 6 months. All right. Same thing requires with the single entry. If you don't have a return ticket, which has been the case for me, because I just bop around, you know, I just figure out where I'm going to go, and I go. I may not always have a return ticket to the United States. In that case, requires some finagling, some finessing. Yeah, you might even need to know somebody. You might even need to have a connect. This this East African visa is valid for 3 months. So let's say you want to see the gorillas in Uganda, but you also want to go on safari in Kenya, and then you want to check out the fashion in Kigali. The East African tourist visa will allow you to do that. And let me see, how much is this? This is $101. So, can go and come. It lasts for 3 months. That's enough to see the country. If you, what I will say about the East African tourist visa, you cannot extend that one. So if you feel like, oh, you may stay longer than 3 months, you're going to have to get a single entry or even a multi-entry, because those you can extend. The East African tourist visa, you cannot extend. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Moving on to the multiple entry visa. All right. When I went to Tanzania, the guy, I guess he was having a good day and he just really liked me. He gave me a multiple entry visa. I really appreciated it. So it's issued to persons who frequent Kenya, and other nationalities require a visa to enter Kenya either for business, tourism, medical, or other reasons. Present the printout at immigration control at the point of entry. They say present the printout to be on the safe side. I have just showed the e-visa on my phone, and there's a QR code that they'll scan. Okay, same requirements: a return ticket, a valid travel document, not more than 6 months. All right, so they say that a multiple entry visa is valid for 3 to 12 months from the date of issue. So you can see that this is different from the single entry. It's different from the East African visa in terms of its validity, and different from, what was the other one we went over? Yeah, just different from those two, the single entry and the East African visa. The multi-entry, this one is $101, okay? And you can go on the evisa.go.ke website for more information about this. But it's wonderful. It's 3 to 12 months from the date of issue, but it's only for Kenya, unlike the East African tourist visa. All right, let's go into this other one, this 5-year multiple entry visa, okay? Now, this is issued to USA nationals who require a visa to enter Kenya either for business or tourism. So if you're American, you have this option. Okay, so the basic requirements are the same. You need a return ticket, and your passport cannot expire within 6 months, okay? So it's a 5-year multi-entry visa. Present the printout. And what is this one? This was $161. I really think this is new. $161 for a 5-year multiple entry visa. So this is great if you go and come. If maybe you have a partner that lives here that you like to be able to see periodically, and you don't have to pay for, a single entry visa every time you come, which is what, $51 every time you come. This is great for people who have business here. This is great for people who know that Kenya is going to be their short-term home. So definitely consider the 5-year multiple entry visa. Love that. So I said that there are so many ways to go about it. All right, when you go on the e-visa website, that's what you'll find. But there's other things There's other ways that allow you to come into Kenya legally that's not on the e-visa website for whatever reason, okay? One of them is the retirement visa. I think I still have that up here. Okay. The retirement visa is really interesting, right? Because you only got to be 35. You only have to be 35. So you can apply for retirement Class K permit in Kenya if you are at least 35 years old. In addition to the application for the Kenyan permit, you must provide a statement that you won't engage in income generating activities unless you have the relevant work permit, okay? You also must have, it says the application for the permit also requires that you prove to have an independent annual income of at least 24,000 USD per year. And you can stay here. You can stay here as long as you want, as long as you have that information, the 24, or those requirements, the 24,000 USD, 35 years old. You're not going to be working here unless you have a work visa. So in regards to that, I would say that you hire a professional. And I'll talk more about hiring a professional. You can't really ask Kenyans about this type of thing because they don't know. They really have no need to know about visas. Just like when people ask me, how can I come to the US? What are the requirements? I have no idea because I am a United States citizen. I have never looked into the requirements to come to the United States. So unless you know a Kenyan who has connects, or you're thinking they might have connects with immigration, when you ask Kenyans, most of the time, I will say like 99% of the time, they really don't know. All right, moving on to a spousal visa. Now, again, you can Google that. You can also hire someone to help you with the spousal visa. The spousal visa is basically what it sounds like. You're married to a Kenyan and therefore you're allowed to stay into the country legally. Now, leaving and coming back in, from what I understand, can be a bit tricky. It's not as easy as people think. So before you think, oh, I'm gonna just marry somebody for papers, talk to people. Because from what I've heard, it's not like that. And also, depending on your gender, it may be a lot difficult than you think. And I think this is because there are men that are coming to Kenya who are not Kenyan, and they're marrying Kenyan women so that they can have citizenship level access. They're launching businesses, they want to buy property, etc., etc. And the Kenyan government is like, hold up, we not dumb, we know what you're doing, and we put a stop to this. So I would say ask people, okay? Talk to people, do your research, and you might even want to contract somebody for a minimal amount to handle this for you. There's also student visas. I've seen Black expats take Swahili classes in an effort to get that student visa. I've at least heard them talking about it and then ultimately decide, oh, actually, I decided to go another route. So that's something that you can also look into. If you're studying, let's say, Kenyan history, or you're studying Swahili or something else, you may be able to get a student visa. I even know people who have paid, I think it's like 2,000 USD, and open businesses. and they're able to get a special visa or permit that allows them to be in Kenya for 2 years. After the 2 years, you got to apply again. Again, I don't see that on the e-visa website. What I will say about this is that there's so much about obtaining these permits and visas that I just cannot say on camera. I'm going to be honest with you. There's so much about being in Kenya legally that I just cannot share on camera. That's just it. So my advice is that this is my personal advice, okay? My personal advice is that you get one of the visas mentioned, multiple, single, 5-year, or even East African, all right? And you get here and you talk to people. And they'll tell you, hopefully they'll tell you the real. I'll tell you the real. I also offer consultations, okay? You talk to me about anything, your fears, your insecurities, the logistics, the visa, transportation, housing, all of that. We'll have a very organic discussion for 1 hour, and I will tell you all that I know, okay? I also just want to reiterate that these things are always changing, okay? So a great place for information is expat groups. There are Kenyan, there are Nairobi expat Facebook groups, okay? One of them that I belong to is Black Expats in Kenya on Facebook. We even have a WhatsApp group, and people are always asking. People who live here currently, people who are traveling here temporarily, like it just ranges the gamut. People are always asking about visa requirements, COVID requirements, all types of things, okay? And they get real responses in these groups. So that's what I would suggest. There's also a woman who has helped me, who has helped my guests. Her name is Miss Millie. Hit me up. I'm not going to put her information in this video because I'm not quite sure she wants everybody around the world to have her information, right? But if you need assistance, hit me up and I will send you her contact information. Miss Millie, as far as I know, she also helps people with investments, with purchasing property, getting apartments, all of that. Let me just say this. I feel like I need to be careful. Let me also say this. It's a lot of scammers out there. A lot of scammers out there. My father and his partner, they were scammed. There are a lot of people out there that will say that they can get you a visa and they take you for a ride. You may never get the visa. At the minimum, they charge you exorbitant prices. There's no need to half step. There's no need for you to cut corners, okay, unless you need something expedited. What happened with my father and his partner, they went to some website, and I think the company was based in Singapore, somewhere in Asia. And my father and his partner paid $250 USD per person for a visa they never got. And then they started hitting my dad up asking for all this extraneous information. And so they ultimately had to go through the credit card company to have that money reversed. Okay. Now they're only here for 2 months. I'm sorry, 2 weeks. They're only here for 2 weeks. So, single entry visa, they're not traveling anywhere else. They came to Kenya, then they're going back to the United States. So, that's $51 per person. So, I say all that to say be careful. Unless you need an expedited visa, there's no need to go anywhere else but evisa.go.ke. You want to give yourself, I would say, 2 weeks. You want to give yourself 2 weeks to get your visa before you plan to travel to Kenya. You can get it a lot sooner, but just to be on the safe side. The visa situation is something that we're all trying to figure out. There are multiple ways to go about it. You know, if African nations would just give us a special visa, just give us a special permit, those of us of African descent, as a way of saying, here's a little reparations. Here's a little we apologize. Here's a little we welcome you. We want you. We want you to pour your dollars, your euro, whatever you got, okay, your reais into this country. Help us to grow. That would be amazing. We wouldn't have to jump through all of these hoops, but as of right now, that doesn't exist. I've heard that there's a group of people, a group of African Americans that are working on this. As of yet, right now, you need a visa. Before I go, there was another incident that I thought about that I just wanted to share to reiterate, to drive the point home that you really do need to be careful, because I was having difficulty with the website, the e-visa site. So I was like, I'm not going to go downtown to the cyber and see if they could work something out for me because I needed an extension. And I hit up a friend who was like, oh yeah, I got a guy that could do it for you. So, the thing is, you give him a little money for, his services, and he makes it happen for you. So he was able to do that. Then I find out after the fact that no, he just doctored up a PDF. He had not gotten me the extension. So when I needed to revisit that situation, I was informed that I was no longer in the system. Like, I didn't even have an extension. So again, be careful. And I'm being a bit cryptic because it is what it is. It's not a straightforward process all of the time. If you're a diplomat, yes, and you've got somebody doing that for you. If you're working for a company, a missionary, something like that, they're doing that for you. But if you're looking at living in Kenya, right, and you're not retired, it could be a little challenging for you. However, reach out to me, okay? If you have questions, really just reach out to me and I can give you the real. I would love to help you out on your journey to coming to Kenya. One of the services that I offer is Eclectic Fashion Tour in Nairobi. This is a tour that you can book through Airbnb Experiences. I would love to show you my Nairobi. I would love to take you to the wholesale market, the West African market, the Indian market, bespoke designers. Like, I would love to just show you around the cutest boutiques so that you can have a great time when you come. So if you are interested in fashion, regardless of your gender, please book a tour through Airbnb Experiences. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining me on this episode of BLAXIT to Africa. If you liked what you heard, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. May you thrive. May you be inspired. May you move with love and intention. Until next time.